This is the Webmaster's account of when they lived in the Final Fantasy house. This is the original person who set up the website and set up the original warning. Caution, things are about to get very dark. This all happened a while ago. Checking old journal dates, it was 2002. And I was stupid, as you will see. I should have seen obvious signs and didn't. People have noted that I was stupid. They are smart, and they are right. The reason this is up here is so other people will read it and not be as stupid as I was. Again, for clarification, what I did was not smart. People have been saying how it takes strength to go through this. No, it takes sheer, unbridled idiocy. Just because it was stupid, though, doesn't mean it couldn't happen again to someone who is just as dumb. This story isn't for people who can identify the stupidity immediately. It's for those of you who have named things like, I wish I was an anime and spend time role-playing online. I also strongly suggest you check out the rest of this. There are some people that had it worse than me. Most people watching the journal now probably don't know, but back in the day I ran a pretty popular website devoted to the character Cloud and a very minor character, Zack, from Final Fantasy VII. It was really only a comprehensive one out there, about 2, which was why I got such notice. I was used to receiving fan mail and other people's fan art, which I'd put up on the website. I actually haven't had anywhere near that kind of fame since then, and believe you me, I don't miss it. But anyway, I had my AIM up on the website because I was new to the whole interweb fandom and wanted people to come talk to me about the site. Feedback was awesome in my eyes. I met a lot of cool people this way, like Rydia. I was also always looking to promote the site, so when I got an IM from some stranger offering a link exchange, I was like, oh boy. I was expecting some little podunk geosites page, but then they told me they ran the domain hojo.org. I'd never been there before, but I ran a quick check. It looked mostly personal with a bit of a shrine to a character, Professor Hojo, from the same game. I was like, oh, that's cool. Sure, we can link exchange. This person introduces themselves to me as Hojo and pretty quickly started calling me Zack. I was okay with that because Zack was and still is my favorite character in the game. For a while, it was mostly normal. This Hojo person seemed to be just another normal webmaster. We didn't have a whole ton in common, so we didn't really talk that often. So one day, I had just done putting up some art, and it was of a villain monster Genova as a dog creature. I gave it a little mini story under the image to be creative. Something about cold water and being strangled by tentacles, I don't even remember now. But Hojo IMs me and tells me that was very well written. I'm flattered, so I thank him. Then it starts getting weird. I'll try to remember how it went, but it's been years. It was really realistic, he says. Is that a memory? Understandably, I'm like, what? Is that one of your memories? I was unfamiliar with the concept being put to me at the time, being still pretty internet virginal. I said no, I just made it up. He seemed disappointed, and I didn't understand why. We didn't talk for a few days. Then an IM comes at me where he says, my wife would like to talk to you. Oh, how cute, I'm thinking. It's this married couple who runs a Hojo shrine. Sure, I'll talk to your wife. Wives are nice people. Idiot alert. Now realize during this time I'm a college freshman, and like most college freshmen, I was at the height of my idiocy. Friends will remember I wasn't quite smart about drinking, and so I hate to say it, but my memory of the time is spotty. I'm going to remember what of the build-up I can. The actual events are clear as crystal. This stuff doesn't leave you. The wife, whose name is Jen, begins pressuring me about magic. Now, I was a pagan for a brief stint in high school, but like most kids, I grew out of it. What she was telling me was long since bogus in my mind, but I put up with it. She kept saying how she was a sorceress and stuff, half the time because she insisted I call her Genova, and would emote poking me with tentacles and stuff. I figured she was just only role-playing. I was like, okay, that's cool, it's the internet. I have some friends who are furries who do the same thing, talking about their tails and stuff. I can deal with that. Then came a good old bombshell. I was asked if I had any memories of past lives. I do believe in past lives. I think it's a pretty valid cycle, given how many cultures believe in it. But I told her no, I didn't. But I did believe in it. I should have never even said that. It was like inviting the vampire into my house. Jen's attack was swift and sure. She began in a flurry explaining things to me, how there were alternative universes, and in those universes maybe, just maybe, video games actually happened. I thought it could be plausible, because I like imagining anything's possible. Through all this and all this flurry, she tells me that she thinks in a past life I was Zack from Final Fantasy VII. Think about it, she says. You're both country grown. You both have this instinct of dragging friends off who could be left behind. You take a bullet for someone, right? You say you don't believe in magic or any of that, and he wanted to be a mercenary. For all of his 5 or 6 lines, you have a pretty similar speech pattern. You even live in a basement like he was locked in one, and you hate it. Addle your brain with freshman idiocy and vodka, and this will suddenly make sense. Sure, maybe. I'm not him now, I said, but it was plausible. You are our Zack, she says. By our, I later found out she meant a large group of people whom had been similarly led to the conclusion that they had maybe been video game characters at some point in time. There was an Ares, a Cid, and my then significant other became Red 13, etc. They lived with an overweight, dislikable man that they called Gast, and for those unfamiliar, these were all characters in the game. Some, like me and Cid, had one foot in reality despite it all. I was willing to bite and say maybe at some point I was this guy, but I was also not about to model my life after a game. But they seemed to just want a new friend and some online roleplay, and I was pretty okay with that. For the most part, we didn't touch on the past life thing at all. Jen would sometimes have chats with other people who she was friends with, and we'd all talk, or we'd discuss side additions or little things. All in all, I was fine with them. They were a little flakier than my preferred loaf of bread, but I could live with that. They always called me by my screen name, which confused me. Yasha always made me cringe because I was afraid people would think I was an Inuyasha fan. I tried mentioning this once or twice, but it didn't really get anywhere. The first time they asked me to visit them, I think, was around Christmas. It would cost me $300 to go by bus from my podunk school to their apartment in State College, and they assured me that they would pay to feed me. I would be just on a visit for a weekend to meet people and hang out. At the bus stop, Hojo met me in a lab coat. Hojo was, I know by now, actually a girl. Not trans, just a girl. They were lesbians, and that was cool with me. I'm just noting it here to avoid future confusion. When we arrived at the apartment, Jen, who insisted I call her Genova, and often referred to herself as Jenny Nova, came storming out to Hojo and I, screaming in Hojo's face. I had no idea what it was about. She was wearing a purple skirt pulled up to her boobs. It looked like she had just gotten out of bed, and I was, to say the very least, intimidated. About 3 seconds later, she rolled around in a quick change, suddenly the nicest person ever. Whatever she was mad about was out the window. It was the weekend before Christmas, and all through the apartment, it was a pretty big mess. I brought my rat with me because I had planned to go from State College, PA, straight home to Brooklyn. I had also brought Christmas gifts. Jen had told me earlier that she was a great artist, so I had dropped $30 on real high-quality watercolors for her. The apartment was cluttered, and there were papers and stuff everywhere. The floor was covered in glitter, and I had figured that they were just kind of goofy college students. I mean, college students make a mess. When Jen had shown me her art, though, I realized she would have no idea how to use the watercolors I brought her. They were, at best, a brush being splotted around a page. Nervously, when I gave her the gift, I asked her if she knew how to use them. Of course, okay, I said. Maybe she just hadn't had good tools, but she does know how to use them. She was very happy, though, and that was what mattered. Never mind that the next time I visited, the watercolors were entirely used up. I was taken around town for the weekend and introduced to quite a few random people, most of which now I can't even remember faces or names. One, in all likelihood, was a super awesome Jai, who is like my surly mentor. It was snowing, and I remembered very cold. I'm not good at being introduced, so for the most part, I tried to keep away from stuff going on. I do remember in the mall, Jen had what has to be the first of several instances where I felt frightened of her. She stormed to the side of the mall and sighed and began sulking. The reason for this was because they didn't have enough money to buy something. I don't even remember what, but she wanted it, and they couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it either, so I was stuck in the middle of this. I tried to stay out of it. Fortunately, it seemed to have passed when we got back to the apartment. We had a good time, piling up stuffed ladybugs and laughing all the while. About this time, I start to realize, though, Jen wasn't role-playing when she talked about her children and other selves. Jen is what the internet calls a soul bonder. In other words, batshit loony. She believes that she has a lot of people living inside her head talking, and when she wants to take on a personality that fits the situation for her personal gain, she acts one out. For example, if she wanted pity, she would raise the pitch of her voice and pretend to be an innocent child. Now, I was a dumb college freshman, but I wasn't dumb. Like, not that dumb. I knew it was Jen just pretending. I'd already experienced the actor acting for self-gain with a high school drama friendship. So I just humored her when she did this and wasn't about to treat her any different. About this time, I got into a fight with my mother, who expected some unreasonable nonsense from me. My mother is the only person who can make me cry, and because of my view on crying is if no one is around to care, why bother doing it, I let myself cry there. Jen and Hojo suggested I stay longer and began talking very, very drastic measures, that I needed to get away from my home, that I could abandon my family, here is the number of a youth support center, etc. I honestly was frightened by this. My family is certainly high on my list of things I get stressed all to kingdom come by, and I didn't want to cut off all means of ties to them. I managed to work it out so I could go home 2 days later as a sort of take that to my family. Jen told her mom that she was the same way, and that Hojo had to go all the way from California to rescue her. Jen's mom was apparently a horrible, abusive person who hated her daughter for being gay. Her father was absent or divorced or something. It was never clear. She kept saying how, even though her grandmother was rich, she didn't love her. She had stories of her abusive friend who trained her to be Sephiroth or something. I was sympathetic, always having been one to believe in the "don't complain, people have had it worse than you" shtick. So a few days later, we went to the bus stop to catch my bus to Brooklyn. I was crazy beforehand because my rat was still in her travel cage after about 4 days and I had no money on and on. I wanted to get to a shop early so I couldn't miss the bus. Jess assured me that she knew what time the bus was. Because it was her computer, I couldn't check for myself. When we got to the bus station, they told me my bus had left an hour ago. I was delayed 1 day by what Jen swore was an honest mistake. I was willing to believe it. I went home. Overall, the first visit was not so bad.